Settle in, dear listener, and let yourself sink a little deeper into comfort. Draw the blankets close, soften your shoulders, and allow your breath to find its own gentle rhythm. Tonight, we embark on a journey through one of the most enchanting mysteries of the wizarding world, a journey into the realm of wands, those slender instruments of magic that have shaped destinies, turned tides of war, and whispered secrets across centuries. Let the world beyond these words fade softly away. For here, in this quiet space between waking and dreaming, we shall explore the legendary wands that have left their mark upon magical history, and the souls who wielded them. Close your eyes if you wish, or let them rest half open on some distant point. There is no urgency here, no rush. We have all the time that sleep requires, and our story shall unfold like the petals of a moonflower, slow and inevitable, beautiful and serene. In the heart of Diagon Alley, where cobblestones gleam with the patina of centuries, and the air shimmers with possibilities, there stands a shop that has endured since 382 BC. Its windows are narrow and dusty, displaying a single wand resting on a faded purple cushion, and above the door, golden letters spell out a name that every young witch and wizard comes to know: Ollivanders, makers of fine wands. To step across that threshold is to enter a place where time moves differently, where the mustiness of ancient wood mingles with something indefinable. Perhaps it is magic itself, concentrated and patient, waiting. The shop stretches back impossibly far, its walls lined floor to ceiling, with thousands upon thousands of narrow boxes, each containing a wand, each wand containing a story. For you see, dear listener, a wand is never merely an object. It is not simply a tool to be picked up and used at will. A wand is a living extension of magic, born from the marriage of wood and core, shaped by the wand-maker's art, and completed only when it finds its true match, the witch or wizard whose very essence resonates with its own. The wand chooses the wizard, as the saying goes, and this choosing is one of the deepest mysteries in all of magical lore. Mr. Ollivander understood this better than perhaps anyone who ever lived. With his wide, pale eyes that seemed to see into the very soul of magic, he devoted his life to the study of wand lore, that most subtle and complex branch of magic. He knew that every wand was as unique as the person who would wield it, that no two wands were truly identical, even if they shared the same length, wood and core. For magic, you see, is not a science of fixed formulas, but an art of infinite variation, shaped by intention, by character, by the unspoken yearnings of the heart. The wood from which a wand is crafted carries its own properties, its own temperament. Holly, which grows with leaves that stay green through winter's harshest months, speaks of protection and courage. Yew, that ancient tree found in graveyards, whispers of death and rebirth, of power that transcends mortality. Willow, supple and graceful, bends in service to charm and healing. Elder, rarest and most powerful, demands a master worthy of its formidable gifts. Each tree gives up its wood reluctantly, and the wand maker must approach with respect, understanding that he is working with something far older and wiser than himself. And then there is the core, the heart of the wand, the source of its power. Into the carefully shaped wood must be placed something magical, something that carries life and power in its very essence. Phoenix feather, dragon heartstring, unicorn hair. These are the most common, though wand makers across the centuries have experimented with countless variations. velar hair, thestral tail, rougarou hair, each bringing its own particular magic, its own demands and possibilities. The phoenix feather, plucked from that magnificent bird that dies in flame only to rise again from its own ashes, grants the wand the greatest range of magic, though it is perhaps the most difficult to master. Such wands are capable of the most spectacular displays of magic, but they are also the most independent, the most likely to act of their own accord. They are picky, these phoenix feather wands, and they require a wizard of rare character. Dragon Heartstring produces wands of great power, capable of the most spectacular magic, though they are also the easiest to turn to the dark arts. They learn quickly, these wands, and they bond strongly to their first owner, though they can be won by another if that wizard proves superior in magical combat. There is something fierce in them, something of the dragon's own fierce heart. Unicorn hair creates the most consistent magic, the most faithful wands. They are difficult to turn to darkness, and they remain loyal to their first owner regardless of whether that wizard is later defeated. There is a steadfastness to these wands, a purity that reflects the unicorn's own incorruptible nature. Yet they are not powerful in the way that dragon heartstring wands are powerful. Theirs is a quieter, steadier magic. The wand, once created, sits in its box and waits. Years might pass, decades even, before the right wizard enters the shop. And the wandmaker waits too, patient as the wood from which he crafts his art, knowing that destiny has its own timing, its own rhythm that cannot be rushed. When a young witch or wizard finally stands before the counter at Ollivanders, uncertain and eager, the wandmaker begins the ancient ritual of matching. He might ask questions. Which is your wand arm? Are you right or left-handed? But these are merely the beginning. The true test comes when wands are placed in the seeker's hand, one after another, and wandmaker and wizard both wait for that unmistakable moment of recognition. Sometimes the wrong wand does nothing at all. Sometimes it produces a sputtering of sparks or an uncontrolled burst of magic. Books flying from shelves, lamps exploding, the very air crackling with misalignment. But when the right wand touches the right hand, dear listener, that is when magic reveals its true nature. Warmth spreads from fingertips to heart. Sparks might shoot forth in a fountain of gold and red, or a gentle light might emanate from the wand's tip, or the wizard might simply know, with a certainty beyond words, that this wand is theirs and they are its. The connection between wand and wizard is intimate and profound. The wand comes to know its master's habits, their particular way of moving, their emotional patterns, their deepest intentions. It learns to respond not just to spoken spells, but to unspoken desires, to the subtle fluctuations of will and want. A wizard might go through their entire life never fully understanding the depth of this bond, never quite putting into words what their wand means to them, and yet they would feel its loss more keenly than the loss of a limb. For the wand, you see, is more than an instrument. It becomes a companion, a confidant, a mirror that reflects back the wizard's own nature. A brave wizard's wand might seem to pulse with courage when danger threatens. A gentle witch's wand might produce magic of particular beauty and subtlety. And a dark wizard's wand, here we tread carefully into shadow. A dark wizard's wand might grow as twisted as its master's soul, until wand and wizard are bound together in corruption, each reinforcing the darkness in the other. Yet the relationship is never simple, never entirely one-sided. A wand can resist a wizard who asks it to perform magic contrary to its nature. It can refuse, subtly or overtly, to cooperate with intentions that violate some deep principle written into its wood and core. And most mysteriously of all, a wand's allegiance can change. Through defeat or death, through complex circumstances of mastery and surrender, a wand might transfer its loyalty to a new owner, though such transitions are never simple and never without consequence. There are wands, dear listener, that have passed through many hands, each owner leaving their mark, their influence, their particular shade of magic absorbed into the wood until the wand becomes a repository of history, a vessel carrying the echoes of every spell it has ever cast. And then there are wands so bound to their first owner that they can never truly serve another, wands that would rather break than bend to a new master's will. The greatest wands in magical history are not simply the most powerful, though power certainly plays its part in legend. The greatest wands are those that found perfect partnership with wizards of exceptional character, for good or ill, and together wrote stories that echo across the ages. These are the wands that turned the tide of battles, that protected the innocent, that delved into mysteries better left alone, that made terrible sacrifices or terrible mistakes, that shone with brilliance or burned with darkness. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, we shall walk together through the stories of such wands. We shall meet Sirius Black's wand of loyalty, companion to a wizard torn between two worlds, between family and friendship, between freedom and fate. We shall encounter Lily Potter's willow wand, swishy and good for charms, the wand that witnessed the greatest act of love the magical world has known. We shall hold, in our imagination, the holly and phoenix feather wand that chose Harry Potter, and its dark twin of yew that served Lord Voldemort, two brothers bound by fate and prophecy. And we shall trace the long, bloody, magnificent history of the Elder Wand, the Death Stick, the Wand of Destiny, most powerful and most cursed of all wands ever made. Each of these wands, dear listener, tells us something profound about magic and about life itself. For the story of a wand is always, ultimately, the story of choice and consequence, of the relationship between power and responsibility, between destiny and free will. A wand might choose a wizard, but the wizard still chooses what magic to make, what path to walk, what legacy to leave behind. As we journey through these stories, let yourself relax more deeply with each word, each sentence, each gentle turning of tale. There is no need to remember every detail, no test to pass, no urgency to stay alert. Let the stories wash over you like waves on a distant shore, rhythmic and soothing, carrying you gently toward the shores of sleep. If you drift away and return, if you hear some passages and miss others, that is exactly as it should be. These stories are here to serve your rest, to populate your dreams with magic, to ease you into the deep and healing darkness of true sleep. Outside Ollivander's shop, Diagon Alley grows quiet as evening deepens. The last shoppers have returned to their homes. The leaky cauldron's laughter has softened to murmurs, and even the owls in Elop's Owl Emporium have settled on their perches. Inside the wand shop, thousands of wands rest in their boxes, each one dreaming, perhaps, of the wizard or witch who will one day claim it, who will give it purpose and story and meaning. And somewhere in the world, perhaps in this very moment, a child is discovering their first sparks of magic, a flower blooming at a touch, a toy zooming across a room, anger making glass shatter, or sadness calling down rain. That child does not yet know about wands, about Ollivanders, about the strange and wonderful destiny that awaits all those born with magic in their blood. But the time will come, as it always does, when they will push open that dusty shop door and take their place in the long tradition of witches and wizards seeking their perfect match. For now, though, for this quiet moment suspended between day and night, between waking and sleeping, we need only rest in the knowledge that magic exists, that wands and wizards find each other across impossible odds, and that every ending is also a beginning, every sleep a small death that promises resurrection with the dawn. So breathe deeply, dear listener, and let us begin our journey into legendary wands and the souls who wielded them. The first story awaits, and it speaks of loyalty, of friendship, of a wizard who never quite fit the mold his family had cast for him, and of the wand that stayed true to him through transformation and tragedy alike. But that story, like sleep itself, will come when you are ready for it. For now, simply rest and know that you are exactly where you need to be. The wandmaker closes his shop for the evening, and somewhere in the darkness, a wand waits to tell its story. In the ancient and a most noble house of black, where portraits scowled from gilded frames and family trees stretched back through centuries of pure blood pride, a child was born who would challenge everything his lineage demanded. The year was 1959, and autumn leaves were falling on the elegant townhouses of London when Sirius Orion Black drew his first breath, already marked by a name that spoke of stars and destiny. The Black family had expectations, dear listener, expectations as heavy as the silver and as cold as the marble that decorated their ancestral home at number 12 Grimold Place. They expected obedience. They expected adherence to the old ways, the pure blood supremacy that had defined their family for generations. They expected their eldest son to carry forward the dark legacy they had so carefully cultivated, to take his place among those who believed magic should be hoarded, protected, kept pure at any cost. But expectations, as we shall see, are fragile things when confronted with the fierce independence of a soul, determined to choose its own path. When young Sirius turned 11, as all young wizards do when their time has come, he made the journey to Diagon Alley. One can imagine the scene. His mother, Walburga, severe and proud, his father, Orion, distant and demanding, walking beside their eldest son through the crooked streets of magical commerce. The family would have drawn stares, perhaps, for the Blacks were known, their reputation preceding them like a chill wind. And they came at last to Ollivanders, to that narrow shop where destiny waited in the form of wood and core and ancient magic. Mr. Ollivander, even then an old man, though not nearly as ancient as he would become, studied young Sirius with those pale, penetrating eyes that seemed to see past flesh and bone into something deeper. He would have noted the boy's bearing, the tension between proud posture and something else, something restless and questioning in those grey eyes that already seemed to look toward horizons beyond what the Black family could imagine. "Let us see," Ollivander would have murmured, his voice soft as dust motes in sunlight. "Let us see what calls to you, Mr. Black." Box after box came down from those towering shelves. Wands were placed in Sirius's hand, one after another, each a possibility, each a path not taken. We do not know how many he tried, how many failed to recognize him as their true master, but we do know that eventually, inevitably, the right wand touched his palm. The exact specifications of Sirius Black's wand have been lost to history, dear listener, for not all wands leave detailed records, and Sirius's life would take turns that kept such details in shadow. We do not know if it was made of mahogany or elm, of ash or blackthorn. We do not know with certainty whether its core held phoenix feather or dragon heartstring or unicorn hair. But we can imagine, can we not, what sort of wand would choose a boy like Sirius Black? It would need to be strong, certainly, for Sirius possessed a strength of will that few could match. It would need to be flexible, capable of adaptation, for his life would demand constant transformation, constant rebellion against the path laid out before him. Perhaps it was a wood that spoke of protection, for Sirius would prove himself fiercely protective of those he loved. Perhaps its core carried something of the phoenix, symbol of rebirth and renewal, for Sirius would die to his old life and be reborn into something entirely new. What we know with certainty is that when the right wand found his hand, when that spark of recognition passed between wizard and wand, something fundamental was decided. The wand that chose Sirius Black was not a wand that would serve darkness easily. It was not a wand that would bend to cruelty or supremacy. It chose a boy whose heart, despite his family's best efforts, still held capacity for love, for loyalty, for the kind of friendship that would define his entire existence. And so Sirius Black went to Hogwarts, wand in hand, and everything his family expected began to unravel. The Sorting Hat, that ancient and wise judge of character, barely touched his head before shouting, "Gryffindor," a pronouncement that must have echoed through the great hall like thunder, that must have sent shockwaves through the Black family portraits back in Grimmauld Place. For every Black before Sirius had been sorted into Slytherin, had taken their place among the cunning and ambitious, had walked the path of pure blood tradition. But Sirius Black's wand had already known what the Sorting Hat confirmed. This wizard was meant for something different, something brave and reckless and true. In Gryffindor Tower, where scarlet and gold replaced the green and silver of his family heritage, Sirius flourished. His wand became an extension of his irrepressible spirit, producing magic that dazzled and disrupted, that transformed and transported. He was brilliant. There was no denying that. The kind of natural talent that makes magic look effortless, that draws others into orbit like planets around a star. And oh, how his wand must have sung with joy as Sirius formed the friendships that would define his life. James Potter, who became closer than a brother, whose presence filled the void where family love should have been. Remus Lupin, whose quiet wisdom balanced Sirius's wild energy, whose terrible secret Sirius would guard with unflinching loyalty. Peter Pettigrew, smaller and less confident, drawn to Sirius's brilliance like a moth to flame. Though this friendship, dear listener, would carry seeds of tragedy we shall approach gently when the time comes. Together, they called themselves the Marauders, and Sirius's wand was there for every adventure, every rule broken, every boundary pushed. It transformed him into Padfoot, the great black dog that became his animagus form, a transformation of staggering complexity that few adult wizards ever master, achieved while still a student through pure determination and love for a friend who needed their protection. Can you imagine, dear listener, the magic required for such a transformation? The wand would have needed to channel not just power but precision, not just intention, but understanding of one's own essential nature. To become an animagus is to look deeply into the mirror of self and accept what you see there, to allow that truth to reshape your very flesh and bone. That Sirius succeeded speaks volumes about both wizard and wand. Both possessed the courage to embrace transformation. Both understood that loyalty sometimes requires becoming something other than what you were born to be. The wand moved through his fingers as he drew the Marauder's map, that extraordinary piece of magic that revealed Hogwarts in all its secret complexity. It cast spells of mischief and protection, of laughter and fierce defense. It dueled when necessary, for Sirius was never one to back down from a fight, especially when his friends were threatened. And gradually, as the years at Hogwarts passed like chapters in a beloved book, the wand and wizard grew together, became inseparable in the way that all true partnerships do. The wand learned Sirius's particular way of casting, sharp and confident, with a flair for the dramatic. It adapted to his moods, his passions, his absolutely unshakable conviction that love and loyalty mattered more than blood, more than tradition, more than all the dark purity his family held sacred. When Sirius finally left home for good, when he could no longer bear the suffocating darkness of number 12, Grimmauld Place, his wand was there, had perhaps been waiting for this moment of final rebellion. He fled to the Potters, found sanctuary with James's family, and his wand served him in this new life with undimmed devotion. For you see, the wand had not chosen a black family heir. It had chosen Sirius, the individual, the friend, the young man willing to sacrifice everything for what he believed was right. The First Wizarding War came like a shadow falling across the land, and Sirius Black's wand was drawn in earnest now, no longer just for mischief and school-day duels, but for survival, for protection, for the desperate fight against true darkness. He joined the Order of the Phoenix, that brave assembly of witches and wizards willing to stand against Lord Voldemort's rising power, and his wand cast spells that saved lives, that held back darkness, that proved again and again that he was nothing like the family that had shaped his childhood. His wand was there when James married Lily, when their son Harry was born, when Sirius became godfather to a child who represented everything good and worth protecting in the world. It was there through missions and battles, through narrow escapes and small victories, through the grinding terror of a war that seemed to have no end. And then came the night that shattered everything. October 31st, 1981, when Lily and James Potter were murdered, when little Harry survived the killing curse, when the wizarding world erupted in celebration even as Sirius's world collapsed into grief and rage. He arrived at Godric's Hollow to find his best friend dead, his chosen brother gone forever, and nothing in all his magical training, nothing his wand could do, could bring James back or ease the howling emptiness of that loss. His wand was in his hand when Hagrid took Harry away, when Sirius made the decision that would haunt him, to pursue Peter Pettigrew rather than protect Harry, to choose vengeance over guardianship. And perhaps his wand, knowing its master's heart, knowing the grief and rage that consumed him, responded to that pursuit with all its power. But we shall speak softly here, dear listener, for what came next was confusion and betrayal and terrible injustice. Peter Pettigrew, the friend they had protected and trusted, had been the spy all along. Peter, who who had sold James and Lily to Voldemort, who now orchestrated his own apparent death and framed Sirius for murder and betrayal. In the chaos of that confrontation, in the explosion that killed 12 muggles and left only Peter's finger behind, Sirius's wand bore witness to the destruction of everything he had built, everything he had become. And then the Aurors came, and Sirius was arrested, and his wand was taken from him. This separation, dear listener, let us acknowledge it gently. This forced parting of wand and wizard after so many years together was its own kind of death. Imagine the wand locked away somewhere in the Ministry of Magic, unable to feel its master's touch, unable to respond to his need. Imagine Sirius, wandless in Azkaban, that fortress of despair surrounded by Dementors that feed on hope and happiness, stripped not just of his freedom, but of the magical instrument that had been part of him for nearly 20 years. 12 years he spent in that place. 12 years while his wand gathered dust in ministry storage, or perhaps was destroyed, as the wands of convicted criminals often are. 12 years during which the bond between wand and wizard was stretched across an unbridgeable distance. But Sirius Black was not meant to die in Azkaban. His innocence, though, unknown to the world, burned in him like a coal that Dementors could not quite extinguish. And his ability to transform into Padfoot, that achievement of his Hogwarts years accomplished with his wand's help, gave him a chance no other prisoner had ever possessed. He escaped, slipping through the bars as a dog, swimming through icy waters to freedom. And when he reached the mainland of magical Britain once more, he was wandless in a world where a wand was everything. His own wand was lost to him, perhaps destroyed, certainly beyond recovery. And so Sirius Black, one of the most talented wizards of his generation, lived as a fugitive without the instrument that had helped define him. He would use other wands, certainly, wands taken from enemies or borrowed from allies, but they would never be quite right, never respond with the same instant understanding, the same perfect partnership. His wand, his true wand, was gone, and that loss, though perhaps small compared to his other losses, was nonetheless profound. Yet here, dear listener, we find something beautiful in the tragedy. For Sirius's loyalty, that quality his wand had recognized and served so faithfully, did not require a wand to express itself. His love for Harry, his determination to be the godfather he had promised to be, his willingness to risk everything to protect and guide James's son, these needed no wand to make them real. And so we leave Sirius Black's wand to rest in mystery, its fate uncertain, its story incomplete in the way that some stories must remain. Perhaps it was destroyed after his imprisonment, reduced to splinters and ash. Perhaps it sits still in some forgotten corner of the ministry, waiting for a master who will never reclaim it. Or perhaps, and let this be a gentle thought to carry into sleep, perhaps it knew somehow that its wizard remained true to everything it had chosen in him all those years ago in Ollivander's shop. For a wand does not choose power alone or skill alone. It chooses character, essence, the fundamental truth of who a person is. And Sirius Black's wand chose loyalty, chose love, chose the courage to be different from what the world expected. That choice echoed through every spell it ever cast, through every transformation, through every moment of friendship and protection and fierce, uncompromising love. As you drift deeper into rest now, dear listener, let this story settle softly in your mind. Let it remind you that loyalty is its own kind of magic, that the truest wands choose not what we pretend to be, but what we really are, that some bonds transcend even the physical presence of the things we hold dear. Sirius Black's wand served him well, and when they were parted, the qualities it had recognized lived on in him regardless. For in the end, the magic is not truly in the wand. The magic always is in the heart of the wizard who wields it. Rest now, and let the image of a faithful wand drift with you into dreams. A wand that chose rebellion over tradition, love over hate, loyalty over everything. In the town of Cokeworth, where industrial smokestacks rose against grey English skies and ordinary life unfolded in rows of identical houses, a girl was born who would prove that magic recognizes no boundaries of birth or blood. Lily Evans came into the world on January 30th, 1960, to parents who knew nothing of wands or wizards, who lived entirely in the muggle world of bills and jobs and everyday concerns. But magic, dear listener, magic has its own way of announcing itself. Little Lily discovered her gift early, as many magical children do. Flowers blooming at her touch, objects moving when her emotions ran high, small impossibilities that her parents tried to explain away as coincidence or imagination. But Lily knew, even before she had words for it, that she was different, that something extraordinary lived inside her, waiting to be understood and shaped and given purpose. When her Hogwarts letter arrived by owl, when the truth was finally confirmed and celebrated, Lily's family faced that truth with love and wonder. And though her sister Petunia would eventually let jealousy poison what had been affection, for now there was only excitement, only the glorious anticipation of a girl about to enter a world where she truly belonged. The journey to Diagon Alley must have been magical in itself for young Lily, passing through the leaky cauldron into that hidden street where witches and wizards went about their extraordinary business. The shops with their impossible wares, the cauldrons and spell books, the owls hooting from their perches, and above all, the knowledge that she was home, truly home, perhaps for the first time in her life. And then they came to Ollivanders, to that narrow shop where wood and core and destiny waited in thousands of slim boxes stacked to the ceiling. Mr. Ollivander greeted her with that peculiar intensity he brought to every fitting, those pale eyes studying her, not with judgment, but with deep curiosity, as though she were a puzzle to be understood, a magical signature to be read and matched. He asked his questions, her wand arm, her preference, but these were merely formalities. The real magic was in the choosing. "Let us try," he murmured, and boxes began to float down from the shelves. Perhaps the first ones were wrong, too stiff or too yielding, cores that didn't quite resonate with her particular magical frequency. But then a box was opened, and from its depths emerged a wand of willow, 10¼ inches, swishy and flexible, and when Lily's fingers closed around it, the world changed. Warmth spread from her palm up through her arm, settling somewhere near her heart. Red and gold sparks, fountains from the wand's tip, and Lily laughed with pure delight, recognizing in that instant that this wand was hers and she was its, that they would walk together through whatever adventures and challenges lay ahead. "Willow," Ollivander said, softly, his voice carrying that note of satisfaction that came when a particularly fine match was made. Willow wands are drawn to those with great potential, often combined with a certain insecurity about their own abilities, though they may hide it well. A wand for healing magic, for protective charms, and swishy, excellent for charm work. Yes, I think this wand will serve you very well, Miss Evans. He was right, of course. Ollivander was almost always right. Lily took her willow wand to Hogwarts, and from the moment the Sorting Hat placed her in Gryffindor House, recognizing her courage and her fierce moral conviction, her wand became an instrument of remarkable magic. In her hands, the willow wand sang. She excelled in charms from her very first lesson, her wand producing spells of unusual elegance and precision. Professor Flitwick would often pause by her desk, watching with approval as she mastered levitation charms, color-changing spells, the intricate wand movements required for more complex magical work. Her wand seemed to anticipate her intentions, responding to the gentlest direction, flowing through spellcasting, like water finding its natural course. But Lily Evans was no one-note prodigy, dear listener. Her brilliance extended across all subjects: transfiguration and potions, defense against the dark arts and herbology. She absorbed magical theory with a hunger that spoke of someone who had waited her whole life for this knowledge, for this belonging. And through it all, her willow wand was her constant companion, growing attuned to her rhythms, her particular magical signature, her combination of intellectual precision and emotional depth. The other students noticed, of course, a muggle-born witch, someone the pure-blood supremacists dismissed as mudblood, that vicious slur that cut to the heart of wizarding prejudice, outperforming students who had grown up surrounded by magic, who had magical lineages stretching back centuries. Some admired her for it. Others, steeped in the old hatreds, resented her brilliance, her proof that magic cared nothing for blood status. Among those who noticed was James Potter, that confident, talented, often infuriating boy who seemed to excel at everything while barely trying. His attention was not always welcome. His showing off, his sometimes cruel treatment of others, particularly Severus Snape, who had been Lily's childhood friend, troubled her deeply. Her wand cast shield charms and defensive spells when she intervened in the hallways, protecting those who were bullied, standing up for what was right even when it made her unpopular. "I don't need help from a mudblood," Snape spat at her once after she had defended him, and something broke between them that day, something her wand could not mend, no matter how skilled she was at healing charms. But time, dear listener, time has a way of revealing people's true characters, of allowing growth and change and redemption. James Potter matured, learned humility and kindness, channeled his talents toward protecting rather than tormenting. And Lily, watching this transformation, allowed her heart to soften, allowed herself to see the man he was becoming rather than the boy he had been. Her wand was there for their first real conversation, there when friendship gradually deepened into something more, there when love bloomed unexpected and true. It cast the small magics of courtship, flowers that never wilted, notes that flew to their recipient, protective charms woven around the person she had come to cherish above all others. They graduated into a world at war. Lord Voldemort's power grew like a shadow across Britain, and those who stood for tolerance and justice found themselves increasingly besieged. Lily could have fled into safety, could have hidden her Muggle heritage and kept her head down. But that was never who she was. Her wand had chosen courage, had chosen someone who would fight for what was right, regardless of the cost. She joined the Order of the Phoenix, that brave assembly gathered by Albus Dumbledore to resist Voldemort's rise. Her wand, so good at charm work, learned new spells now, protective enchantments and defensive magic, spells to heal the injured and ward the vulnerable. She fought in battles and skirmishes, her red hair flying, her green eyes fierce with determination, her willow wand steady in her hand. And through it all, there was James, fighting at her side, loving her with a devotion that matched her own. They married in a small ceremony during a brief lull in the fighting, wands touching in the ancient binding ceremony, promising to stand together against whatever darkness might come. When their son was born on July 31st, 1979, when Lily held Harry for the first time and felt the overwhelming surge of maternal love, her wand was there, had perhaps been waiting for this moment all along. For Lily's magic, channeled through her willow wand, had always been strongest when protecting others, when motivated by love and fierce devotion. She cast protective charms over Harry's crib with a tenderness that made the magic shimmer and glow. She wove spells of safety around their home, wherever they might be hiding. Her wand had become an instrument of mother love, of the most powerful protective magic that exists in all the world. The prophecy came, and with it the terrible knowledge that Voldemort would target their family, that little Harry had somehow been marked as the Dark Lord's equal. They went into hiding, protected by the Fidelius charm, trusting Peter Pettigrew with their location, believing they were safe. But safety, dear listener, is sometimes an illusion that shatters in a single night. October 31st, 1981. Halloween, the night when everything changed. Voldemort came to Godric's Hollow, betrayed there by the friend they had trusted. He broke through their wards and defenses as though they were paper, and Lily's wand was upstairs, resting on the table just out of reach, when she heard James shouting, heard him trying to hold off the Dark Lord to give her time to save their son. She heard James fall, heard the awful silence that followed, and she snatched up her wand and ran to Harry's nursery, knowing it was too late to fight, too late to escape, knowing that all she had left was her body between her baby and the monster who had come to destroy him. Not Harry, not Harry, please, not Harry. Her voice broke with desperation, with a mother's anguish. She could have stepped aside. Voldemort gave her that choice. Stand aside and live. Let him kill the child, save herself. But Lily Evans Potter had never stepped aside from what was right, from what love demanded. Her wand was in her hand, but she knew no spell she could cast would stop the killing curse that was coming. She knew her wand, skilled as it was in charm work, could not turn back the most unforgivable of curses when cast by the most powerful dark wizard in a century. So she cast a different kind of magic entirely, the magic her wand had been building toward through all those years of protective charms and healing spells and fierce devotion. She cast the magic that requires no wand at all, the magic that is older and deeper and more powerful than any spell in any book. She cast the magic of sacrifice, of love, willing to die so that the beloved might live. When Voldemort's curse struck her, when she fell before her son's crib with her wand still clutched in her hand, that sacrifice activated a protection unlike anything the Dark Lord had anticipated. Her love, her willing death, her absolute devotion to Harry's survival created a shield that would save her son, that would turn Voldemort's curse back upon himself, that would reduce the most feared wizard in the world to less than spirit, to scattered remnants fleeing into darkness. Lily's willow wand fell beside her, its work complete, its witch gone, but her magic living on in the child she had saved. The wand that had cast such beautiful charms, that had protected and healed and loved, lay still in the ruins of the cottage at Godric's Hollow. We do not know what became of it after that terrible night, whether it was collected by the ministry, kept as evidence, or stored away, or whether it was destroyed in the chaos, reduced to splinters like so much else. But perhaps, dear listener, the physical wand no longer mattered. For Lily Potter's greatest magic, the spell that would protect Harry through all the years to come, the love that would ultimately defeat Voldemort, that required no wand at all. It lived in Harry's blood, in his skin, in every cell of his being. Her sacrifice had written protection into his very essence, more permanent and powerful than any charm her willow wand could have cast. When wizards speak of Lily Potter's wand now, they speak of swishy willow, good for charm work, wielded by a witch of extraordinary skill and courage. But the true story of that wand is simpler and more profound. It chose a girl who would grow into a woman capable of the greatest magic, the magic that defeats death itself, if only for the one you love enough to die protecting. And that magic, dear listener, needs no wand to make it real. Rest now and let this story settle in your heart. A reminder that the greatest power is love, that protection is its own kind of spell, that sacrifice transforms everything it touches. Sleep peacefully, knowing that love endures, that mothers protect, that magic takes many forms. The willow wand rests now, its work complete, and somewhere a child lives because his mother loved him enough to give everything. In the rubble of Godric's Hollow, on that terrible Halloween night in 1981, a baby survived what no one had ever survived before: the killing curse cast by Lord Voldemort himself. Little Harry Potter lived, marked only by a lightning bolt scar upon his forehead, while the Dark Lord who had murdered his parents was reduced to less than spirit, his body destroyed by the rebounding curse. The baby was taken to his aunt's house, to the Muggle world of Privet Drive, where he would grow up knowing nothing of magic, nothing of his fame, nothing of the destiny that awaited him. For 10 years, he lived in a cupboard under the stairs, unloved and unwanted, believing himself to be ordinary, perhaps even less than ordinary. But magic, dear listener, magic cannot be suppressed forever. It was always there, waiting inside him, occasionally bursting forth in moments of emotion or danger, vanishing glass at the zoo, appearing on the school roof, growing back his hair after a terrible haircut. These were signs, whispers of the truth that would eventually be revealed. When the letters began arriving, when Hagrid finally broke down the door of that hut on the rock in the sea and declared, "You're a wizard, Harry," the boy's life split cleanly into before and after. Everything he had believed about himself, about the world, transformed in an instant. He was not unwanted. He was not ordinary. He was famous, marked by tragedy and survival, welcomed into a world where he finally belonged. And so, on a summer day in 1991, Harry Potter walked down Diagon Alley for the first time, his eyes wide with wonder, his heart full of hope and possibility. There were so many marvels, the cauldrons and spell books, the owls and robes, the sweets that moved of their own accord. But all of it, in its way, was leading to one destination, one narrow shop with dusty windows and a single wand resting on a faded purple cushion. Ollivanders, makers of fine wands. Since 382 BC, the bell tinkled as Harry entered, and Mr. Ollivander appeared from the shadows, those pale eyes gleaming with an intensity that was both welcoming and slightly unnerving. He knew who Harry was, of course. Everyone in the wizarding world knew the boy who lived. But more than that, he remembered, with the perfect recall of a master wand maker, the wands he had sold to Harry's parents. "Ah, yes," he said softly. "I wondered when I'd be seeing you, Mr. Potter." He measured Harry, arm length, height, between the eyes, from shoulder to finger, wrist to elbow, all the physical dimensions that might guide the search. But these measurements, Harry would learn, were only the beginning. The true test lay deeper, in the mysterious connection between wand and wizard that could not be measured with tape or predicted by formula. The first wand was wrong. It produced only a shower of sparks before Ollivander snatched it back. The second was worse, breaking a vase before it was pulled from Harry's hand. Box after box came down from the shelves, each wand tried and rejected, and Harry began to feel a creeping anxiety. What if no wand wanted him? What if there was something wrong with him? Something that made him unsuitable for magic after all? But Mr. Ollivander only seemed more fascinated, more engaged, trying different combinations with increasing interest. Tricky customer, eh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. And then he paused, his expression becoming thoughtful, almost reverent. He climbed his ladder and retrieved a box from deep in the shop's collection, handling it with particular care. "I wonder," he murmured, almost to himself. Yes, why not? He opened the box, and inside lay a wand of Hollywood, 11 inches long, with a core of phoenix feather. When he placed it in Harry's hand, the boy felt warmth spread through his fingers, felt something click into place, as though a part of him he hadn't known was missing had suddenly been found. The wand vibrated gently, and from its tip burst red and gold sparks that seemed to dance and swirl in patterns of light, illuminating the dusty shop with warmth and promise. "Oh, bravo!" Ollivander exclaimed, his voice carrying genuine delight. "Very good, yes, very good indeed." But then his expression grew more serious, and he spoke words that would haunt Harry for years to come. "Curious, very curious. The wand's core," he explained, "came from a phoenix, Fawkes, Dumbledore's loyal companion, who had given exactly 2 feathers for wand making. The other feather had gone into another wand, a wand of yew, 13.5 inches, and that wand had been sold to Tom Riddle, who would become Lord Voldemort." "I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter," Ollivander said quietly. "It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather resides in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar." The wands were brothers, dear listener, twin cores, opposite woods, opposite destinies. One had chosen a boy who would become the darkest wizard in a century. The other had chosen the boy who had survived that wizard's curse, the boy marked as his equal by prophecy and fate. Holly, the wood of Harry's wand, has long been associated with protection and defense against evil. It is a wood that chooses wizards engaged in dangerous spiritual quests, wizards who need help overcoming anger and impetuosity. The holly tree stays green even through winter's darkest months, symbolizing life persisting in the face of death, hope enduring through darkness. And phoenix feather, that rarest and most powerful of cores, grants the greatest range of magic, though such wands are the hardest to master. They are capable of the most spectacular displays of power, but they are also the most independent, the most likely to act on their own initiative. They are picky about their owners, loyal once bonded, and capable of magic that defies expectation. Harry's wand chose him not because he was powerful, though he was, nor because he was particularly skilled. He was just beginning. It chose him because of what he was, the essence of his character, the courage and love and fierce determination to protect others that lived at his core. It recognized in him something worth serving, worth fighting beside, worth staying loyal to through darkness and danger. That loyalty was tested almost immediately. In Harry's first year at Hogwarts, his wand faced challenges no first-year student's wand should encounter. Dueling with older students, defending against dark magic, confronting Professor Quirrell, who carried Voldemort's spirit within him. The wand never faltered, never questioned, never failed to answer Harry's need. It learned his particular style of magic, instinctive rather than studied, emotional rather than coldly intellectual, strongest when protecting others. It adapted to his ways, his rhythms, becoming an extension of his will in a way that seemed almost effortless, despite how much he still had to learn. In the Chamber of Secrets, Harry's wand stood with him in the darkness beneath the school, facing the memory of Tom Riddle and the ancient basilisk that had been terrorizing Hogwarts. It cast the spell that destroyed the diary, that freed Ginny Weasley, that proved once again that love and courage could triumph over darkness and fear. But it was in the graveyard at Little Hangleton, at the end of Harry's 4th year, that the true connection between the twin wands revealed itself in ways no one could have predicted. Voldemort had returned to a body restored through dark magic and Harry's unwilling blood. The Dark Lord stood before Harry, alive again, powerful again, eager to prove his superiority by killing the boy who had survived him once before. He cast the killing curse. Harry, acting on instinct and Hermione's half-remembered advice, cast Expelliarmus. The spells met in mid-air, and something extraordinary happened. The brother wands recognized each other. Phoenix Feather called to Phoenix Feather, and instead of one spell overpowering the other, they locked together in Priori Incantatem, the reverse spell effect. A golden dome of light encased Harry and Voldemort, cutting them off from the Death Eaters, from interference, from everything except this strange magical duel between wands that shared a core. Beads of light appeared on the connecting thread of magic, and Harry, through sheer determination and will, forced them toward the Voldemort's wand. When they reached it, the U-wand began to regurgitate its most recent spells. Shadows of those it had killed emerged from the wand's tip. Cedric Diggory appeared, then Frank Bryce, then an old woman, and finally, James and Lily Potter. Shadows of Harry's parents, offering him encouragement, offering him the distraction he needed to escape. The Holy Wand had called forth his parents' spirits, had connected him to them across the barrier of death, had given him the strength to survive when survival seemed impossible. It had recognized what Harry needed most in that moment and provided it, demonstrating a kind of magic that went beyond mere spell casting into something deeper and more mysterious. Through his 5th year, when the Ministry denied Voldemort's return and Harry felt isolated and angry, his wand remained steady. It cast his first successful Patronus, that guardian of light that took the form of a stag, his father's animagus form, proving that love and memory could drive back even Dementors. It taught Dumbledore's army, helping other students learn defensive magic, sharing its knowledge in a way that few wands would tolerate. In the Department of Mysteries, battling Death Eaters, protecting his friends, fighting for the prophecy that named him as Voldemort's equal, Harry's wand never wavered. It had chosen him, and it would stand with him through everything. The hunt for Horcruxes tested both Harry and his wand in new ways. Camping in the wilderness, constantly moving, always in danger, the wand remained his faithful companion. It cast protective enchantments around their campsites. It provided light in darkness. It defended against attackers. It was there when Ron left and when he returned, when Hermione was tortured at Malfoy Manor, when they broke into Gringotts riding a dragon. But the Holly and Phoenix Feather wand met its end, dear listener, in an act of friendship and desperation. At Godric's Hollow, visiting his parents' grave, Harry was ambushed by Nagini and Voldemort. Hermione cast a blasting curse to save him, but the spell ricocheted, and Harry's wand, his loyal, faithful Holly wand that had served him for 6 years, was struck and broken, snapped nearly in two. Harry felt the loss like a physical wound, like losing a part of himself. He tried to repair it with spellotape, but the wand was never quite the same, its magic flowing uncertainly, its connection damaged. He used other wands after that. Hermione's, wands taken from snatchers, Draco Malfoy's wand won in combat. But none of them were his Holly wand. None of them felt right in his hand. Yet the story does not end in breaking, dear listener. For when Harry finally defeated Voldemort, when he became the true master of the Elder Wand through a chain of victories neither he nor Voldemort fully understood, he used that most powerful wand in existence for only one purpose: to repair his Holly wand, to restore it completely, to make it whole again. "I'm putting the Elder Wand back where it came from," he told Dumbledore's portrait. "It can stay there. If I die a natural death like Ignotus, its power will be broken, won't it?" But first, he used it to mend his first wand, his true wand, the Holly and Phoenix Feather that had chosen him in Ollivander's shop all those years ago. And when the Holly wand was whole again, when it lay perfect and complete in his hand, Harry knew he had made the right choice. For the Elder Wand represented power, but Harry's Holly wand represented something far more important: loyalty, friendship, the quiet courage of staying true through every trial. It had chosen a boy who would rather die than let others be hurt, who would walk willingly to his own death to protect those he loved, who would always choose sacrifice over safety. The Holly wand had known somehow, from that very first moment in Diagon Alley, exactly who Harry Potter would become. It had seen the courage in him, the capacity for love, the absolute refusal to become what Voldemort represented, even when they shared so much. Parseltongue, their connected minds, the piece of Voldemort's soul that had lived in Harry's scar. And so, the wand of Holly and Phoenix Feather served the chosen one, not because destiny demanded it, but because Harry chose, again and again, to be worthy of its loyalty. Together they proved that it is our choices, far more than our abilities, that show what we truly are. Rest now, dear listener, and let this story remind you that loyalty is its own magic, that broken things can be mended, that the wands we carry matter less than the hearts that guide them. Sleep peacefully, knowing that courage and love triumph, that destiny and choice dance together, that some bonds can never truly be broken. The holly wand rests beside its master, faithful still, and will be until the very end. In a cold December of 1926, in a London orphanage where children lived without love or belonging, a boy was born who would grow to fear death above all things, who would twist magic into darkness in his desperate quest for immortality. Tom Marvolo Riddle came into the world as his mother died leaving it, abandoned before he drew his first breath, named for a father who had fled and a grandfather he would never know. The boy grew up knowing he was different, knowing he could do things others could not. He could make bad things happen to people who annoyed him. He could speak to snakes. He could move objects with his mind, visit places without walking, control and frighten and dominate, even before he understood the word magic. And unlike Harry Potter, who would grow up similarly isolated and discover magic as a gift, Tom Riddle learned early to see his abilities as proof of his superiority, as weapons to be wielded, as power that set him above the ordinary children around him. When Albus Dumbledore came to the orphanage and revealed the truth that Tom was a wizard, that there was a school called Hogwarts, that a whole world of magic awaited, the boy's response was not joy or wonder, but hunger. Hungry for knowledge, for power, for proof that he was as special as he had always believed himself to be. The journey to Diagon Alley must have been extraordinary for young Tom, though he hid his excitement behind a mask of controlled composure. He had learned early to show no weakness, to reveal nothing of his inner thoughts. But when he entered Ollivanders, when he stood before the wand maker who had matched wizards and wands for decades, something in him must have quickened with anticipation. Mr. Ollivander studied the boy with those penetrating pale eyes, taking his measurements, noting the cold intelligence in Tom's gaze, the controlled intensity of his bearing. This was no ordinary first-year student. This was someone already aware of his own potential, already calculating, already planning. The first wands tried were quickly rejected, too soft, too yielding, unable to match the strength of will that radiated from the 11-year-old boy. Ollivander's expression grew more thoughtful, more intrigued, as he reached for boxes containing wands of greater power, darker possibility. And then he brought down a wand of yew wood, 13.5 inches, containing a core of phoenix feather, the brother to the feather that would, decades later, choose Harry Potter. When Tom Riddle's fingers closed around that wand, the connection was immediate and powerful. The wand recognized in him a wizard of exceptional ability, of towering ambition, of magical potential that might achieve greatness or infamy or both. Dark red sparks shot from the wand's tip, and Tom's lips curved in something that might have been a smile, though it carried no warmth. Curious, Ollivander murmured, that same word he would speak years later to Harry. Very curious indeed. The yew wand, dear listener, is a wood with ancient and complex associations. Yew trees grow in graveyards, living for thousands of years, their roots intertwining with the bones of the dead. They are symbols of death and rebirth, of endings and beginnings, of power that transcends mortality. A yew wand is drawn to wizards with the potential for both great light and great darkness, wizards whose magic might change the world for good or ill. The wand chooses the wizard, yes, but the wizard chooses what to do with the wand. And Tom Riddle, holding that U-wand for the first time, had already made choices about who he wanted to become, choices that would shape everything that followed. At Hogwarts, sorted into Slytherin as all his ancestors had been, Tom Riddle flourished. His U-wand became an instrument of his brilliance and his darkness both. He excelled at every subject, absorbed magical theory with frightening speed, impressed his professors with his intelligence and his carefully maintained facade of the model student. But beneath that polished surface, the wand was learning darker purposes. It cast the spell that opened the Chamber of Secrets, that ancient hidden place his ancestor Salazar Slytherin had built beneath the school. It commanded the basilisk that lurked within, sending it to attack Muggle-born students, pursuing Slytherin's twisted vision of blood purity. It cast the curse that killed Myrtle Warren, the first murder that would split Tom Riddle's soul and create his first Horcrux. The U-wand never resisted, never questioned. It had chosen power and ambition, and it served those qualities faithfully, just as Harry's Holly Wand would later serve courage and love. A wand reflects its wizard, amplifies their nature, becomes a partner in whatever magic they choose to make. Tom Riddle's wand helped him create the persona of Lord Voldemort, that name he fashioned from an anagram of his own despised birth name. It cast the dark mark that would become the symbol of terror across wizarding Britain. It performed magic that pushed boundaries, that explored the darkest corners of magical theory, that sought always for more power, more control, more ways to transcend the mortality he feared above all things. After Hogwarts, the U-wand travelled with him through his dark transformation. It was there when he gathered his first followers, when he began building his army of Death Eaters, when he waged his first war against those who opposed his vision of pure blood supremacy. It cast unforgivable curses without hesitation. Imperio to control, Crucio to torture, Avada Kedavra to kill. How many fell before that wand, dear listener? How many lives were ended by the green flash of the killing curse, channeled through you and Phoenix Feather? The wand kept no count, felt no remorse, simply served its master's will as all wands do, for better or worse. It was with him at Godric's Hollow on that Halloween night in 1981 when he went to kill the Potter family to eliminate the child the prophecy had marked as his equal. James Potter fell to the U-wand first, struck down as he tried desperately to give his wife and son time to escape. Then Voldemort climbed the stairs, and Lily Potter died begging for her son's life. Died in an act of sacrifice that would prove more powerful than any spell the U-wand had ever cast. And then the wand turned toward baby Harry, and Voldemort spoke the words he had spoken so many times before. Avada Kedavra. The green light shot forth, but something went impossibly wrong. The curse rebounded, struck Voldemort instead of Harry, and the Dark Lord's body was destroyed, his spirit ripped from flesh and forced to flee as less than ghost, less than vapor, barely alive at all. The U-wand fell among the rubble of the destroyed house, separated from its master for the first time in decades. What became of it during those 13 years while Voldemort existed as a wraith, possessing animals, desperately seeking a way back to power? The wand waited, perhaps preserved by magic or by fate, ready to be reclaimed when its master found a way to return. When Voldemort finally achieved a rudimentary body with Pettigrew's help, When he was able to hold a wand again, his yew wand returned to his hand. But something had changed in that graveyard at Little Hangleton when Voldemort used Harry's blood in the ritual of his resurrection. He had taken into himself the very protection Lily's sacrifice had granted, binding himself to Harry in new and complex ways. And when Voldemort commanded his Death Eaters to give him Lucius Malfoy's wand so he could duel Harry, certain that using a different wand would allow him to kill the boy, the true strangeness of the twin wands revealed itself. Harry's Holly Wand and Voldemort's yew wand met in combat, and the Phoenix Feather Cores recognized each other. Instead of one overpowering the other, they locked together in priori incantatem, connected by a golden thread of light, refusing to harm their brother. The yew wand began to regurgitate its most recent victims, Cedric, Frank Bryce, the old woman, and finally James and Lily Potter, their shadows emerging to protect their son. Voldemort was humiliated, forced to flee, his wand having betrayed him in the moment he most needed it to perform. And in that moment, dear listener, we see the limitation of power without understanding, of force without wisdom. Voldemort was the more skilled wizard, the more knowledgeable, the more ruthless. But he had never understood the deep magic of love and sacrifice, had never grasped the mysteries of wand lore that went beyond mere technical mastery. The yew wand had served him faithfully for decades, but it could not overcome the connection between the twin cores, could not force its brother to kill when the deeper magic of blood and sacrifice bound Harry and Voldemort together. And so, Voldemort abandoned the wand that had been his constant companion since childhood. He sought the Elder Wand instead, that legendary instrument of ultimate power, believing that only the most powerful wand ever made could overcome the strange connection between himself and Harry Potter. He did not understand, in his arrogance and his ignorance of love, that the problem was not the wand, but the wizard, not the instrument, but the hand that wielded it. The yew wand's fate after that abandonment remains uncertain, lost to history, like so many details of those dark times. Perhaps it was destroyed, perhaps locked away, perhaps it still exists somewhere, waiting for another wizard drawn to darkness and power. A wand does not die when its wizard does, after all. It can be passed down, taken up, bonded to a new master, if that master proves worthy or strong enough to claim it. But let us pause here, dear listener, and reflect on what the yew wand story teaches us. For this is not simply a tale of darkness and evil, not merely a catalogue of terrible deeds. It is a meditation on choice, on the paths we take, on what we do with the gifts we are given. Tom Riddle and Harry Potter were both orphans, both marked by prophecy, both exceptionally talented, both chosen by wands with phoenix feather cores from the same bird. They shared so much: parseltongue, fragments of memory, even a piece of soul. But Tom Riddle chose to see his magic as proof of superiority, chose to pursue power above all else, chose to fear death so deeply that he would split his soul and sacrifice his humanity to avoid it. Harry Potter, given similar circumstances and similar gifts, chose differently. He chose friendship over isolation, chose to protect rather than dominate, chose to walk willingly toward death rather than let others die in his place. The wands reflected these choices: Holly for protection and life, yew for power and death, phoenix feather for both. That paradox of rebirth through flame, that possibility for transformation. The yew wand served Voldemort well, because Voldemort's intentions were clear and his will was absolute. He knew what he wanted: power, immortality, domination. And the wand helped him pursue those goals with terrible efficiency. It was not an evil wand, for wands themselves are not good or evil. They are instruments that channel their wizard's magic, that amplify their nature, that become partners in whatever journey the wizard chooses to take. But a wand cannot grant what its wizard lacks. It cannot provide wisdom to the foolish, love to the loveless, or understanding to those who refuse to see. Voldemort's yew wand was powerful beyond measure, wielded by a wizard of exceptional ability, and yet it could not save him from himself, from the emptiness at his core where love should have lived, from the fear that drove him to destroy his own humanity in pursuit of an immortality that was never truly life at all. In the end, power without love is just another form of weakness. Skill without wisdom leads only to destruction. And a wand, no matter how powerful, is only as great as the heart that guides it. The yew wand served darkness because darkness was what its wizard offered it. It could have served light, perhaps, in other hands. For yew is not inherently evil any more than holly is inherently good. But in Tom Riddle's hands, in Lord Voldemort's grip, it became an instrument of terror and death, a tool that helped him wage war against love and hope and everything that makes magic beautiful. Let this be a gentle lesson as you drift towards sleep, dear listener. Let it remind you that we are defined not by our circumstances or our gifts, but by our choices, by what we do with what we are given, by whether we turn our power toward building or destroying, toward protecting or harming, toward love or fear. The yew wand is gone now from our story, abandoned by the wizard who wielded it, replaced in his quest for ever more power, ever more control. But its tale remains, a shadow lesson about paths not taken, about the terrible cost of choosing power over humanity, about what we lose when we fear death more than we love life. Rest now and let the shadows of this story fade into gentler dreams. Remember that darkness teaches too, in its way, showing us what to avoid, what not to become. Sleep peacefully, knowing that choice matters more than circumstance, that love triumphs over fear, that the wands we carry matter less than the hearts that guide our hands. The yew wand rests somewhere in darkness or destruction, its story complete, its master fallen, and in its absence we learn that true power comes not from the wand we hold, but from the choices we make. Long ago, so long that history blurs into legend, and legend softens into fairy tale, there lived 3 brothers who were traveling at twilight along a lonely, winding road. They came to a river too deep to wade through and too dangerous to swim, but being learned in the magical arts, they simply waved their wands and made a bridge appear across the treacherous water. They were halfway across when a hooded figure blocked their path. It was Death himself, or so the story goes, angry that he had been cheated of 3 new victims, for travelers usually drowned in that river. But Death was cunning. He pretended to congratulate the brothers on their magic and offered each of them a reward for having been clever enough to evade him. The eldest brother, Antioch Peveril, was a combative man who asked for a wand more powerful than any in existence, a wand worthy of a wizard who had conquered Death himself. So Death crossed to an elder tree on the banks of the river, fashioned a wand from a branch that hung there, and gave it to the eldest brother. The second brother, Cadmus, asked for the power to recall the dead, and death gave him the resurrection stone. The third brother, Ignotus, wisest of the three, asked for something that would allow him to leave that place without death being able to follow, and death reluctantly handed over his own cloak of invisibility. The brothers parted ways, each carrying their gift. And here, dear listener, is where the Elder Wand's true story begins, not in triumph, but in blood. Antioch Peveril travelled to a distant village and sought out a wizard with whom he had a quarrel. Using the Elder Wand's immense power, he defeated his enemy in a duel, leaving the man senseless on the ground. Then Antioch went to an inn, where he boasted loudly of the powerful wand he had won from death itself, declaring himself invincible. That very night, while Antioch lay sleeping, drunk on wine and arrogance, another wizard crept into his room, stole the Elder Wand, and slit Antioch's throat for good measure. And so death claimed the eldest brother, just as he had always intended. The wand passed to the thief, and thus began its long, bloody journey through history, a trail of murders and betrayals, of ambition and downfall, of wizards who believed that possessing the most powerful wand would make them invincible, only to discover that power attracts challengers, like honey attracts flies. For you see, dear listener, the Elder Wand's very existence was a curse upon its owners. Those who wielded it could not resist boasting, could not help but reveal their power, and in doing so, painted targets upon their own backs. Every victory with the Elder Wand drew attention, created enemies, ensured that someone, somewhere, was plotting to take it for themselves. The wand passed through countless hands over the centuries. Some owners died in their beds, murdered by those who crept in like the wizard who killed Antioch. Others fell in duels, defeated by challengers who sought the wand's legendary power. Still others were simply overpowered and disarmed, the wand's allegiance transferring to the victor even without death. For the Elder Wand had a particular nature, you see. Unlike most wands, which might remain loyal to their first owner or require great effort to win, the Elder Wand had no loyalty except to power itself. It would abandon its master without hesitation if that master was defeated, transferring its allegiance to the victor regardless of whether the victor even knew what they had won. This made the wand both incredibly powerful and incredibly dangerous, for its user could never truly trust it, could never be certain it wouldn't betray them the moment someone stronger came along. The centuries rolled past like waves upon a shore, and the Elder Wand's story continued. It appeared in historical records occasionally, references to an unbeatable wand, tales of wizards who won every duel, legends of a death stick that made its master invincible. Wand makers and historians tracked these stories, trying to separate truth from myth, trying to understand if such a wand truly existed. Sometime in the 18th century, the wand came into the possession of a wand maker named Grigorovich, who ran a prestigious shop in Eastern Europe. Grigorovich understood what he possessed, the legendary Elder Wand, the death stick itself, and he saw not just power, but opportunity. If he could study the wand, understand what made it so powerful, perhaps he could replicate its properties, create other wands of similar strength, and become the most famous wand maker in the world. He kept the wand hidden in his workshop, telling no one of its presence, studying it in secret. But somehow the story leaked out, as such stories always do, whispered in pubs and passed between collectors of magical artifacts. And the whispers reached the ears of a young man whose ambition burned as bright as any wizard who had ever lived. Gellert Grindelwald, still a teenager, but already brilliant and ruthless, heard the rumors of the Elder Wand in Gregorovich's possession. He tracked the wand maker to his shop, broke in through a window one night, and stunned Gregorovich before the wand maker could defend himself. Grindelwald seized the Elder Wand and fled, laughing, leaving Gregorovich alive but wandless, defeated, his dreams of fame reduced to ashes. And so, the Elder Wand had a new master, perhaps the most dangerous since Antioch Peveril himself. Grindelwald understood power in ways most wizards never would. He was charismatic and intelligent, capable of inspiring devotion in his followers, of painting visions of a world ruled by wizards for what he claimed was the greater good. With the Elder Wand in his hand, he became nearly unstoppable, waging a war across Europe, building an army, pursuing his dark vision of wizard supremacy over muggles. For years, he terrorized the magical world, and no one could stand against him. The Elder Wand made him too powerful, too skilled, too dangerous. Auras fell before him. Entire communities lived in fear, and Grindelwald grew ever more confident, ever more certain of his inevitable triumph. But there was one wizard who might match him, one person who had once been his friend, who had once shared his dreams before recognizing them for the darkness they were. Albus Dumbledore had avoided confronting Grindelwald for years, for reasons both political and deeply personal. But finally, in 1945, he could delay no longer. The duel between Dumbledore and Grindelwald became legend, the greatest wizarding duel ever fought. Witnessed by many but understood by few, it raged through Nurmengard Castle, these two supremely gifted wizards matching spell for spell, neither giving ground, the air crackling with magic so powerful it seemed reality itself might tear. Grindelwald wielded the Elder Wand, the Death Stick, the unbeatable instrument of power. By all logic, he should have won. But Dumbledore fought with something Grindelwald had forgotten in his pursuit of power. He fought with love, with remorse for what his old friend had become, with a deep understanding of magic that went beyond mere force. And in the end, somehow, impossibly, Dumbledore won. He defeated Grindelwald, took him prisoner, and in that moment of victory, the Elder Wand's allegiance transferred to him. Dumbledore understood what he had won, dear listener. He understood the Elder Wand's history, its curse, the bloody trail it had left through centuries. He could have destroyed it, perhaps, snapped it in half, and ended its dark legacy. But Dumbledore was always curious, always seeking to understand, rather than simply eliminate. And he kept the wand, studying it, wielding it, becoming perhaps the only wizard in history to possess the Elder Wand without being corrupted by it. He used it for good, defending the innocent, leading Hogwarts, standing against darkness in all its forms. He never boasted of possessing it, never revealed its identity, allowing most of the wizarding world to believe it was simply his own wand, crafted in his youth. He kept it secret carefully, knowing that revealing the truth would only bring treasure hunters and dark wizards seeking to claim it. For decades, Dumbledore wielded the Elder Wand wisely and well, proving that power need not corrupt if guided by wisdom and love. He became the greatest wizard of his age, feared by dark wizards, beloved by those he protected, and through it all, the Elder Wand served him faithfully, perhaps content at last to be wielded by someone worthy of its power. But even Dumbledore could not escape the Elder Wand's ultimate curse. That power attracts those who would take it. Lord Voldemort learned of the wand's existence, learned that Dumbledore possessed it, and hungered for it as he had never hungered for anything except immortality itself. In the end, it was not Voldemort but Draco Malfoy who became the Elder Wand's master, disarming Dumbledore atop the astronomy tower in a scene of tragic complexity. Draco did not know what he had won, did not understand that in disarming Dumbledore, he had become master of the legendary wand. Severus Snape killed Dumbledore moments later, fulfilling a promise and a plan they had made together. But the wand's allegiance had already transferred. Dumbledore was buried with the Elder Wand, laid to rest in a white tomb on the grounds of Hogwarts. And still, the wand's story was not complete. Voldemort, desperate for power to overcome Harry Potter, broke into that tomb and stole the wand, believing that possessing it would finally make him invincible. But he did not understand wand lore as well as he thought. He assumed that killing Snape, who had killed Dumbledore, would make him the wand's master. He was wrong. The Elder Wand's true master was Harry Potter, who had defeated Draco Malfoy at Malfoy Manor, unknowingly winning the wand's allegiance. And so, when Voldemort and Harry faced each other in the Great Hall at Hogwarts, when Voldemort cast the killing curse with the Elder Wand and Harry cast Expelliarmus with Draco's wand, the Elder Wand refused to kill its true master. The curse rebounded. Voldemort fell, and Harry Potter became master of the Elder Wand, master of all three Deathly Hallows, though he desired none of them. Here, dear listener, is where wisdom finally triumphs in the Elder Wand's long history. Harry understood what Dumbledore had understood, that power for its own sake corrupts, that the Elder Wand carried a curse, that its bloody history need not continue. But rather than destroy it, Harry made a different choice. He used the Elder Wand to repair his own Holy Wand, making it whole again. Then he returned the Elder Wand to Dumbledore's tomb, laying it to rest with the man who had wielded it most wisely, hoping that if he died undefeated, the wand's power would die with him. Its terrible legacy finally ended, and so the Death Stick rests now in white marble beneath Hogwarts, waiting for a master who will never come, its power fading slowly into legend once more, the most powerful wand ever made, tamed at last, not by force, but by the wisdom to let it go. Sleep now, dear listener, and let this story remind you that true strength lies in knowing when to release power, that wisdom surpasses force, that the greatest victory is choosing peace over dominion. Rest deeply, knowing that some stories end not in thunder, but in quiet wisdom, that power relinquished is power transformed. The Elder Wand sleeps in marble and darkness, its bloody history complete, and the world is safer for the wisdom of those who knew when to let go. In the quiet hours of early morning, when darkness softens toward dawn and the world holds its breath between night and day, Diagon Alley rests in peaceful stillness. The shops are closed, their windows dark, their wares sleeping behind locked doors. But in Ollivanders, in that narrow shop where destiny has been shaped for more than 2,000 years, the wands wait in their boxes, patient as time itself, dreaming perhaps of the witches and wizards who will someday claim them. Each wand is unique, dear listener. Each carries its own potential for greatness or tragedy, for light or shadow, for magic that will heal or harm, or simply exist as quiet companion to an ordinary life. And each wand, when it finally finds its true match, will become part of a story. Some stories grand and legendary, others small and personal, but no less meaningful for their quietness. We have journeyed together through some of the grandest stories the wizarding world has known, have we not? We have walked beside Sirius Black's wand of loyalty, that mysterious instrument that chose a boy willing to rebel against everything his family demanded, willing to sacrifice comfort and heritage and safety itself for the sake of friendship. We saw how that wand served him through transformation and mischief, through war and loss, and how even when they were separated by the cruelty of unjust imprisonment, the qualities it had recognized in him remained true. Sirius's wand reminds us, gently, that loyalty need not be loud or showy to be real. It reminds us that sometimes the bravest magic is simply staying true to who we are, choosing love over tradition, friendship over family obligation, the right path over the easy one. His wand chose not power, but faithfulness, and in that choosing revealed what matters most, that we are defined not by where we come from, but by whom we choose to stand beside, whom we protect, whom we love fiercely enough to risk everything. And then there was Lily's willow wand, swishy and good for charm work, wielded by a witch whose very existence challenged the prejudices of the magical world. That wand cast spells of beauty and protection, learned charms that dazzled professors, protected friends who needed defending. It moved through Lily Evans's hands with grace and precision, an instrument perfectly matched to her combination of intelligence and compassion, skill and kindness. But in the end, dear listener, Lily's greatest magic required no wand at all. When she stood before Voldemort with her wand in hand, but knowing no spell could save her son, she chose to cast a different kind of magic entirely, the magic of willing sacrifice, of love powerful enough to create protection that would last for years, that would shield Harry through childhood and adolescence, and into the final battle itself. Her willow wand fell silent that night at Godric's Hollow, but the magic she had performed lived on, written into her son's very skin, more permanent than any charm, more powerful than any curse. And in this we learn that wands, for all their power and importance, are still only instruments. The truest magic flows from the heart, from choices made in moments of crisis, from love willing to give everything so that the beloved might live. Harry's holly and phoenix feather wand chose a boy who had survived the impossible, marked by prophecy, but not defined by it. That wand recognized in young Harry something essential, a courage that had nothing to do with seeking glory and everything to do with protecting others, a capacity for love despite having grown up starved of it, a fierce determination to do what was right even when it cost him everything. Through 7 years they grew together, that wand and that wizard, learning each other's rhythms, becoming partners in a way that transcended mere tool and user. The wand saved Harry's life in the graveyard when it connected with its brother, calling forth the shadows of his parents to give him the strength to escape. It taught defensive magic to other students, sharing its knowledge as few wands would tolerate. It stood with him through every trial, every danger, every impossible choice, and when it was broken, when Hermione's desperate spell snapped it nearly in two, Harry felt the loss like a wound, like losing part of himself. For 7 years, That wand had been his companion, his defender, his connection to the magical world that had welcomed him when the Muggle world rejected him. Other wands could never quite replace it, could never feel quite right in his hand. But the story did not end in breaking, remember. When Harry became master of the Elder Wand and held the most powerful instrument in existence, he used it for only one selfish purpose: to repair his holy wand, to make it whole again. And in that choice, we see wisdom beyond his years, understanding that power matters less than partnership, that the wand which has been faithful deserves faithfulness in return. Harry's wand teaches us, softly, that destiny and choice dance together, that we are shaped by circumstance, but defined by how we respond to it. Two boys marked by prophecy, two wands with phoenix feather cores from the same bird. Two paths that could have been similar, but diverged completely based on the choices each wizard made. Harry chose love, where Tom Riddle chose power, chose sacrifice, where Voldemort chose preservation, chose to repair and restore, where his enemy chose to abandon and replace. But speaking of Voldemort's wand, that hue and phoenix feather that served the darkest wizard of the age, what lessons does it offer us as we drift towards sleep? Not lessons of horror, dear listener, not nightmares to disturb our rest, but gentle reminders of paths to avoid, of choices that lead to emptiness rather than fulfillment. Tom Riddle's U-Wand served him faithfully for decades, channeling his exceptional talent into magic of terrible power. It opened the Chamber of Secrets and commanded the basilisk within. It cast unforgivable curses without hesitation. It killed and tortured and controlled, serving its master's hunger for dominance and his desperate fear of death. But for all its power, it could not give Voldemort what he lacked: the capacity for love, the understanding of sacrifice, the wisdom to see that immortality without humanity is just another form of death. When the U-Wand met its brother in combat, and the Priori Incantatem revealed Voldemort's recent victims, when the shadows of James and Lily emerged to protect their son, the wand demonstrated its own limitation. Power alone was not enough. Skill without understanding led only to failure. And so Voldemort abandoned the wand that had served him since childhood, seeking ever greater power in the Elder Wand, never understanding that the problem was not the instrument, but the wizard, not the wand, but the heart that guided it. His U-Wand reminds us, gently, that magic amplifies what we already are. If we are loving, it amplifies love. If we are fearful, it amplifies fear. Choose your path wisely, for your wand will help you walk it, whether it leads to light or shadow. And then there is the Elder Wand, that legendary instrument whose story spans centuries, whose trail is written in blood and ambition. The Death Stick, they called it, the Wand of Destiny, the most powerful magical instrument ever created. It passed through countless hands, each owner believing they had found the key to invincibility, each learning too late that power attracts those who would take it, that possessing the unbeatable wand simply means painting a target on your own back. Antioch Peverell boasted of his power and was murdered in his sleep. Countless wizards fought and schemed and killed to possess it, only to be defeated in turn by the next challenger. Grindelwald wielded it in his war across Europe until Dumbledore defeated him. And Dumbledore, wisest of all the Elder Wand's masters, understood both its power and its curse, wielding it for good but never boasting, never revealing what he possessed, proving that wisdom can tame even the most dangerous instrument. But it was Harry Potter, that boy who never sought power, who finally broke the Elder Wand's curse. Not by destroying it, though he could have. Not by wielding it to reshape the world, though it would have answered his command. But by returning it to Dumbledore's tomb, by choosing to let its power rest, by understanding that some gifts are more dangerous than curses, that true strength lies not in grasping power, but in knowing when to release it. The Elder Wand's story reminds us, as we drift deeper towards sleep, that the things we chase most desperately are often the things that will destroy us if we catch them. That immortality is meaningless without love to fill the years. That power for its own sake corrupts. That the greatest magic is knowing when to let go, when to choose peace over dominance, when to say enough and walk away from the thing the whole world desires. Each wand we have encountered, dear listener, has taught us something essential about magic and about life itself. Sirius's wand spoke of loyalty and choosing your own path. Lily's wand demonstrated that love transcends any spell. Harry's wand showed us that partnership and faithfulness matter more than raw power. Voldemort's wand warned us that skill without wisdom leads only to emptiness. And the Elder Wand revealed that true strength is knowing when to release what others would kill to possess. But beyond these individual lessons, there is something deeper, something that connects all these stories into a larger truth. The wand chooses the wizard, yes, but the wizard chooses what to do with the wand. Magic is neither good nor evil in itself. It is the intention behind it, the heart that guides it, the choices made in moments of crisis that determine whether magic becomes creation or destruction, protection or harm, love or fear. Every young witch and wizard who enters Ollivanders faces the same mystery, the same moment of recognition when the right wand touches their hand. That moment is full of possibility, full of potential for any kind of story. The wand will amplify what its wizard is, will serve faithfully whatever path they choose to walk. But the choice of path belongs always to the witch or wizard, not to the wand. And so the cycle continues, generation after generation. Children discover their magic, make their pilgrimage to Diagon Alley, step across Ollivander's threshold into that dusty shop where destiny waits. Mr. Ollivander, or whoever now tends the shop in his place, greets them with measuring tape and centuries of accumulated wisdom. Boxes float down from shelves that stretch impossibly high. Wands are tried and rejected, until finally, inevitably, the right wand finds the right hand. Warmth spreads through fingers and settles near the heart. Sparks fountain forth in gold or silver or red, and a new partnership is born. A new story begins. And no one knows, in that moment, whether it will be a story of quiet contentment or legendary achievement, of darkness or light, of sacrifice or selfishness. The wand cannot predict, can only promise to serve faithfully whatever story its wizard chooses to create. In Hogwarts Castle, portraits whisper stories of great wizards and witches who once walked those corridors. The Sorting Hat continues its ancient duty, placing students in houses that match their nature while reminding them that their choices matter more than their sorting. Professors teach charms and transfiguration, potions and defense, passing on magical knowledge to new generations. And through it all, wands move through countless hands, casting spells that heal or harm, protect or destroy, create beauty or wreak havoc. The world keeps turning, dear listener. Magic continues. And somewhere right now, in this very moment, a child is discovering their first sparks of power, making flowers bloom, moving objects with emotion, speaking to snakes, experiencing those first impossible moments that announce the presence of magic in their blood. That child will one day stand in Ollivanders, will feel the right wand warm in their hand, will begin their own journey into the vast and varied landscape of magical possibility. Perhaps they will become legendary, their one story told to help others fall asleep in some distant future. Or perhaps they will live quietly, their wand a faithful companion through an ordinary life filled with small magics and personal joys. Both paths are valid. Both stories matter. For magic exists not only in the grand gestures and epic battles, but in the quiet moments too. A light conjured to comfort a frightened child, a warming charm on a cold night, a simple levitation spell that makes daily life a little easier. Every spell cast with intention and care is magic, regardless of whether it changes the course of history or simply makes one person's day a little brighter. And so we come to the end of our journey, dear listener, to this soft closing where story fades into dream and waken releases into sleep. We have walked together through legendary tales, through wands and wizards whose names echo across decades and centuries. We have learned of loyalty and sacrifice, courage and darkness, power and wisdom. We have seen how choice shapes destiny, how love transcends magic, how the greatest strength is knowing when to let go. The wands rest now in their boxes, waiting in Ollivanders and in homes across the wizarding world. Some serve their masters still, casting spells both grand and small. Others have been lost or broken, destroyed, or laid to rest with the wizards who wielded them. But their stories remain, passed down through generations, teaching lessons to those willing to listen. And you, dear listener, have listened so well, have stayed with these stories through shadows and light, through battles and peaceful moments, through triumph and tragedy, all softened into bedtime narrative. You have allowed these tales to carry you toward rest, and now sleep stands ready to welcome you, to wrap you in dreams where magic is real and wands choose wisely, and love always, always triumphs in the end. Let yourself go now, completely and without reservation. Let the stories settle into your unconscious mind, where they will become part of your dreaming landscape. Let your breathing slow to barely a whisper. Let your body grow heavy and still. Let consciousness fade like morning mist under sunlight. The wands have told their stories. The wizards rest in peace or live on in memory. And you, dear listener, have earned your rest as well, have traveled far enough for one night, have learned all you need to learn until morning comes again and brings with it new stories, new magic, new possibilities. Sleep now, deeply and peacefully, knowing that somewhere in the world, wands and wizards continue their ancient dance, that magic persists, that love endures, that every ending is also a beginning, and every sleep promises resurrection with the dawn. The legendary wands rest in peace. And so, dear listener, should you, good night.